Anyway guys, today we're diving into a piece of BMX history, the Hutch Trick Star. This bike wasn't just a dream for many of us who grew up in the 80s, it was the dream. And that dream's finally about to become a reality for me with this 2022 Hutch Trick Star reproduction frame set. I've got one last piece waiting, and that's the Western H Freestyle stem. It's expected to be released any day now. We're getting close, so let's gear up for this exciting bike build series, which starts now. In this video, we'll explore the past, the present, and the future of the iconic Trick Star. BMX racing was born in California in the early 70s, and it spread rapidly across the US, growing significantly by 1977 when the American Bicycle Association was formed as a governing body. And by the early 80s, BMX had firmly rooted itself in global pop culture, evidenced by its feature in films like E.T. and BMX Bandits, and even McDonald's capitalized on its popularity with a commercial. BMX magazines filled grocery stores, and TV ads for brands like Huffy and Schwinn were everywhere. This era also saw the emergence of BMX Freestyle, pioneered by riders like Bob Haro and Bob Morales. This new style merged the thrill of BMX racing with trick performance, gaining popularity for its accessibility for those without access to racetracks. Specialized freestyle bikes like the Haro Freestyler and later the GT Pro Performer, Redline's RL20, and the Hutch Trick Star became icons of this era. And though not the first, the Trick Star became one of the most celebrated freestyle bikes of its time. So Hutch BMX was established in 1979 by Richard Hutchins in Pasadena, Maryland, and it quickly became a symbol of innovation and quality in the BMX world. Rich aimed to create bikes that were not only high-performing but also visually stunning, and the brand's reputation soared with a top-notch racing team featuring stars like Tim Judge, Rich Farside, and Toby Henderson. These guys dominated the race circuits and elevated Hutch's stature in the BMX community. A significant milestone was the introduction of the Hutch Pro Racer in 1981. As the first complete bike from Hutch, in some ways it really revolutionized BMX with its superior quality and performance, paving the way for the iconic Trick Star. By 1983, Hutch was eager to dive into the growing freestyle wave, and they brought on talents like Woody Itson, Mike Buff, and Mike Dominguez. They didn't have a freestyle-specific frame yet, so they gave Woody a pro racer to modify to his liking, and this was sort of a turning point as it led to a collaboration with Hutch engineers to prototype their first bike made specifically for freestyle. Back in 2022, when Woody visited the BMX Hall of Fame, he shared a bunch of really cool stories about his involvement in the development of the Trick Star, and those were captured in a couple of really awesome videos on the Hall of Fame's Facebook page. He talked about how he was given an initial prototype to work with and how he didn't like the first couple of iterations, and then he goes into detail about how they worked through different design elements to make it just right and how they ultimately ended up calling it the Trick Star. Probably the most iconic feature of the bike is the standing platform, and they didn't want to copy Haro's double top tube design, and Woody mentioned that he didn't really need a standing platform up near the front of the bike, so they came up with a standing platform over the rear, and he didn't want it just to bend down backwards, so he described it to the engineers that the tube should sort of just stop, sort of looking like the Starship Enterprise, and that's really cool when you stop and think about it. All of this was still before axle pegs were a thing. He liked how the loop tail gave him space for his feet in the back, but he wanted something a little bit extra to keep them from slipping, and they ended up adding these standing platforms here by welding on pieces of the bear trap pedal cages, and then similarly they welded on tube-shaped frame standers here to the forks. Another thing that was important to him is that he wanted the head tube angle to be steeper at around 75 degrees. This would provide a quicker response time and better handling. And from my understanding, he was the first to really push for this design element in the early days of freestyle frame geometry, even though it's common now. To create more room for foot placement up front, the Trick Star's design included a unique approach. Unlike the Haro's welded gussets or the GT Pro Performer's bend, Hutch opted for an original design, a smaller tube crossing through the down tube, and this ingenious solution not only added strength, but it also gave the Trick Star a distinctive look, again combining both aesthetics and functionality in a unique way. So yeah, it's worth noting that the original Trick Star was in production from 1984 until around 1986 or early 87, and during this period its manufacturing locations shifted between the US and Japan, leading to subtle variations in its design. For instance, certain versions featured shorter fork pegs while others had longer ones, and additionally the length of the frame stander's overhang differed between the American and Japanese models, with the American ones having longer overhangs. These differences are echoed in the 2022 reproductions, which more closely resemble the Japanese models in terms of the frame stander's overhang.
All the best stuff is made in Japan. Unbelievable.
Oh yeah, Woody had some really interesting comments about how Hutch had asked him if he'd be willing to ride a pink bike and what some of the first reactions were like. If you want to go watch those videos, they're pretty easy to find on Google. Just search for something like Woody Itson Hall of Fame Trick Star. But yeah, these bikes came in some really awesome colors like pink, lavender, baby blue, futuristic black, traditional chrome, and then the iconic popular candy apple red and the candy blue colors. Man, this is the stuff that dreams are made of. By 1985, the Trick Star was a hit in magazines, captivating kids worldwide with its cool looks. However, its high price at $750, which was over double that of a GT Pro Performer, made it a distant dream for most of us. Adjusted for inflation, that's around $2,114, far above most top-tier new school bikes at shops today. This made the Trick Star a luxury, mostly attainable for competitive freestylers or those with really wealthy parents, yet it still became a cult icon. Unfortunately, it couldn't last forever. Even though Hutch was one of the most popular BMX brands in the 80s, it faced a downfall due to several factors. By 1987, the BMX landscape shifted towards freestyle and skateboarding, affecting brands like Hutch that were still heavily into racing. And then the rise in competition from cheaper imports as production moved to Asia further impacted their sales. Financial troubles led to the laying off of key riders, and the brand sailed to Bill Bellis in 1987. Despite efforts, Hutch couldn't recover, and they ceased production in 1992. For the next 15 years or so, Hutch lingered as a nostalgic brand until John DeBruin, who's known as JDB, revived it in 2008, bringing modern touches to classic designs, including frames and components. And the Trick Star was reintroduced in 2015 with contemporary geometry, keeping its iconic loop tail and cross down tube, but without the original frame standers. And the flatland version featured the iconic standing platform, but they also made a street version that had a longer top tube length without the platform. It was generally well received by enthusiasts, but some of the more active riders weren't happy with the geometry of the back end, and they were frustrated that modern pegs didn't fit well on the fork dropouts. But yeah, JDB would make a small run of these Trick Stars every couple of years, with the last ones shipping in 2021. And in 2018, he even did a 24-inch version, which would have been really cool to have for cruising around the neighborhood. And then in September of 2021, he announced an upcoming run of Trick Star replicas that were to be nearly identical to the OGs from the 80s, and pre-orders went through November that fall, and then the waiting game started for their planned arrival in 2022. But unfortunately, due to the pandemic, production and overseas delivery took a lot longer than anticipated, and they arrived in March of 2023. It was a big disappointment, but nothing even close to the fiasco that those guys who pre-ordered the Redline RL22s from Kasten. That was a nightmare for those guys. But yeah, I'm more disappointed that I'm still waiting on that freestyle stem. So there was some real drama on the BMX Museum forums and some of the Facebook groups about the missing holes in the frame standers, as well as the placement of the supports under them, as they aren't identical to the OGs. But most people like me were okay with that, and as I said in the unboxing video, my 12-year-old self wouldn't have cared the least about these differences back in 1986, and they don't really bother me now. I mean, if I really wanted it to be just like an OG from the 80s, I would have just forked out $2 or $3 grand for an original one. So yeah, I can't wait to get this bike together in the coming weeks. And for those who missed out on the Trick Star reproductions or want an improved geometry on a new school version, there's some really great news. About a year ago, JDB teamed up with John Buultjens, who's known for the Haro Lineage series, to create a new school Trick Star complete bike, and John's BMX expertise and reputation for quality promise an exciting release. John's also the focus of the ride, which is a feature film that delves into his challenging childhood, the positive impact of his adoptive parents, and his transformative journey through BMX. It's really an amazing story and totally worth the watch. But yeah, this collaboration raises expectations for these new Trick Stars, blending classic design with modern innovation. Here's sort of where we're at with the project. Towards the end of December 2023, JDB gave an update on his Facebook page, indicating that the project is progressing and that the completes will be more reflective of John Buultjens than JDB, which a lot of guys are stoked about because Buultjens has the experience required to build a bike that will satisfy even the most critical bike enthusiasts. Not too many details have been released yet, but there are a few rumors floating around on Facebook and on the BMX Museum museum forums. And so I recently reached out to John Buultjens over on Instagram about these, and he indicated that it'd really be up to JDB to reveal any specifics or real teasers before the launch. And JDB is usually pretty tight-lipped, so I don't think he'll share more than what he's already did on that Facebook post a couple of weeks ago. But Buultjens did say that they haven't seen the samples yet, and that he'll see them firsthand when he visits Taiwan here in March. So yeah, we know the bikes will be manufactured in Taiwan, probably through Buultjens' connections in the industry that he made working through Haro. There'll be new school geometry with modern technology, but keep the iconic design elements from the originals, similar to what he did with the Haro Lineage bikes. And again, these are just rumors, and while Buultjens didn't confirm them, he didn't debunk them either. They'll supposedly come in 3 sizes, 2 completes in the 19.5 inch and 20.5 inch top tube lengths. The 19.5 inch version will be designed specifically for flatland freestyle, and then they'll have a frame-only version that's in a 21 inch top tube, and that would be awesome if all that's true. I'd strongly consider selling my S&M Dagger and getting one of the 19.5 inch flatland ones. Completes will include premium Hutch components like Aerospeed cranks, and cost will be at least $2,000, coincidentally about the same price as $1985 adjusted for inflation. And I'm thinking they'll probably be even more expensive than that. Otherwise, I'm not sure how they'll reconcile how Hutch currently has these XL24 bike kits available for $3,800, and those aren't even complete kits. There's some folks in the community who really aren't fans of JDB's efforts, but Buultjens seems to be widely loved and respected, and I think a lot of guys who haven't been happy with the modern Hutch stuff are optimistic about these new bikes. I can't wait to see how this new chapter in the Trick Star history unfolds. What about you? Did you have a Hutch Trick Star back in the day, or did you dream of having one like I did? And how do you feel about these new John Buultjens Trick Stars? Is this something that you're interested in? Let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Okay, so that's it for the bike overview. Fingers crossed that the Western H-Stem arrives soon, and then we'll get my reproduction build going. Stay tuned. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.